Time.
We're not, now we will. Now am I on? Okay. We're gonna open the bullying hearing policy. Brandy?
Okay, is this on? Yep. Okay, so we really didn't make any changes to the bullying policy. A couple years ago, Officer Johnson and I worked out a form that parents and students can fill out. And if a student reports bullying, we really encourage administrators to have the student, if they're young, work with their parents to fill out the form, or if they're older, fill out the form themselves. And then once they turn that in, there's sections on the form where administrators can mark how they resolved it. If they investigated and they felt like it was unfounded, they document that. And then they keep these forms on file for the students. Any questions?
I don't think so. You have a question?
No, I was just gonna say, since that was quite thorough, what you did previously, which we had to go through and read all of the things. And then, of course, we got this again. But you do a nice job putting this together.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a spot for public comment where public questions and comments can take place at this time in the agenda. Individuals who want to address the board must complete a public comment form with date, topic, addressing, name and address, and give it to the board clerk prior to the meeting.
I have none.
Okay, then let's close this hearing. And we will open the hearing for parent involvement hearing policy 5018. Randy.
Okay, again, I don't believe there's any changes to this policy this year. This is something that we've had in place for a couple years now. And I don't really have much on this unless you guys have any questions about the policy.
Doesn't look like it. Again, public comment.
I have none.
Okay, we can close the hearing. Okay,
Thank you.
Now we will open the Board of Education regular meeting. The purpose of the North Platte Public School District is preparing all students to be productive, responsible citizens in a safe, caring, supporting learning environment. Our direction is to prepare every student for success through high-quality educational programming delivered by highly effective educators who use innovative, research-based strategies in a safe, supportive environment in collaboration with family, businesses, and community members. Sheila, roll call.
Skip Altick,
Present.
Cindy O'Connor, Emily Garrick,
Present.
Matthew Peterson, Angela Blasey,
Present.
Joanne Lynn Green. Present.
The Nebraska Open Meetings Act legislates the methods by which public meetings are conducted. Information pertaining to the act is posted in the boardroom. We will approve the publications of the June 12th regular meeting of the Board of Education, which is the meetings and hearings are placed in the North Platte Telegraph. The agenda is available on www.nppsd.org 4 days prior to each regular meeting of the North Platte Board of Education.
I would move to approve the publication for the June 12th, 2023 regular board meeting.
Second.
Cindy O'Connor. Emily Garrick,
Yes.
Matthew Peterson,
Aye.
Angela Blasey.
Aye.
Joanne Lynn Green. Aye. Skip Altick.
Aye.
Okay, and then Pledge of Allegiance.
Agenda.
Did I? Oh, I didn't skip something. Okay, approve the agenda for the June 12th regular meeting.
I would move to approve the agenda for the June 12th, 2023 board meeting as published.
Second.
Sheila?
Emily Garrick,
Aye.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
Angela Blazy.
Aye.
Joanne Lynn Green. Aye. Skip Baltic.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye. Now the pledge of allegiance. I was just so excited.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have our communications report.
Good evening. Thanks for allowing the foundation a little time on your schedule. It's been a busy month at the foundation as we're gearing up for our Big Bulldog Weekend, July 28th and 29th. I hope you have that marked on your calendars. We'll be doing Evening of Excellence, the Hollywood Party. You know, so if you want to dress up like Yellowstone or anything like that, come along and or just come business casual. And then we also have our Bulldog Golf Classic with which we partner with the MPHS Booster Club. So we're excited about that. The Evening of Excellence tickets support the scholarship for predetermined future alumni, distinguished alumni, and the auction items will support the foundation's program, Prepared to Learn and Reach grants. The action items this year will be live and also online. We've had generous donation of a trip to Scotland, along with a Dormy Golf Stay and Play package and a Scottish Claymore sword, which I've had to do a lot of research on. Besides, we'll also be auctioning off the drive, naming of the drive at the high school. So along with our drinks and desserts, we'll be doing live, and a lake cruise with the Carlsons will be auctioned off as well when we're honoring 3 amazing North Platte alumni who've done amazing things in their careers. So Michael Grossi, class of 1968, Mindy Stefka Helfrich, class of 1989, and Carrie Ann Schultz Battle, class of 1994. Tickets are available on the website. And then, of course, save the date for September 22nd, which will be the Bulldog Backyard Barbecue. And Change Wars will take place the week before that. So starting September 13th through the 20th will be Change Wars. So we do have some fun recognition this evening. We're going to start off with the May Employees of the Month. And Prairie Friends and Flowers and the Justin Thompson Agency gave recognition to 2 Osgood employees. So if Nikki Ruda and Missy Green, are you both here? So we had overwhelming response. Missy, I know I get that. There's a nice gift for you. So thank you for all your work and dedication. We would love to get a picture with the Board of Education as well. So thank you for all your work. And I think we've got a special little comment maybe.
Well, I just wanted to say that Missy used to work at Cody School when my daughter went there. And she would wait for her every morning to walk into school. We came from hall school, so it was a very hard transition. And Missy would wait for her every morning to walk her down the hall, even though Missy was not in 5th grade. So I appreciate you more than you'll ever know.
Let's give them a round of applause. Awesome, thank you. Just a prop. Good props. Okay. Next, as you know, we celebrated Cheers to Summer out at PALS on May 23rd, and we were able to award the 2023 Teachers of the Year. And we wanted to bring them to meet you as well and get a photo up. We had 5 categories. Unfortunately, in August, maybe we can bring back the secondary teacher, Tiffany Nagley, who received that award. She wasn't able to attend this evening. They all received $250 and our Administrator of the Year received $1,000. And I brought back the 2022 recipients because they weren't at the board meeting. So I thought you needed to meet them too. So we're going to start with Lynette Shannon to do the Employee of the Year. Do you want to see? Yeah, go ahead. Either way.
All right. First of all, thank you for my last year award. I really appreciate that. But this year we are celebrating Alicia, who I worked with over at Buffalo, and I can attest that she works very hard with those little ones and will do anything to help our special needs children. This year was especially hard for her to get there, but she did it because of her cancer treatments. So my heart feels for her and loves her, and I am so happy to give this to her. So, Alicia Penalt for 2023.
Great. Okay, and next, Miss Amanda Condon. You would come forward.
You want me to sit or stand?
You can sit
Okay.
and then stand. Okay. All of the above.
Okay. Well, I was the recipient from last year. Thank you, by the way. The Teacher of the Year for Pre-K 5 had 19 nominees this year. All of these awards were hard decisions. This teacher is appreciated by parents, grandparents, and coworkers. Being naturally gifted as a teacher with high expectations, yet patient, fun-loving, kind, compassionate, positive, dedicated, selfless was mentioned in all of the nominations. The ability to be part of a student's life and to know the family and have students who are now 21 still mention you as one of their favorites and is a testament to Washington's second grade teacher, Mrs. Christy Burford. Congratulations.
Congratulations. And then next, our administrator for 2022 was Mrs. Kim Flanders.
Good evening. I have the honor and privilege of reading, and I'm going to read this to you because I wouldn't begin to articulate all of the positive things that Dr. Eshelman has brought to Cody Elementary. This person is a leader who empowers the teachers and the staff to come to work, be themselves, which in turn gives them the opportunity to truly be the best and most effective. The compassion for helping students and staff is inspiring. Leading book studies for teachers, applying lessons learned and passing it on, and not just talking about it, but making those adjustments to help benefit the students and taking the time to lead by example. She steps up to pilot initiatives head on, and she leads others to join in a strong suit. Some say there are three qualities that most leaders have: the ability to build relationships, the ability to grow and gain knowledge, and the ability to inspire others. Cody Elementary Principal, Dr. Tammy Eshelman, possesses all three of these qualities. Congratulations.
And we have a new award. We used to do the Bulldog of the Year. And this year we've decided to change it to Rookie of the Year. So we had teachers that have been with the district 1 or 2 years. We put them out there and we took nominations. And there we go. Miss Tammy Michaels was last year's Bulldog of Excellence.
Okay, readers on here so I can see. All right, this is our newest award and we have a good one for this award. Education seems to be a family thing. His mom is also an educator for MPPSD. In his first year with the district, he is making a huge impact on students and having fun while doing that, offering his assistance to others during his planning times. And he is also a junior high coach now for 2 sports. He does it all with a great attitude. It is Washington's kindergarten teacher, Mr. Mitchell Ferguson.
Those are our award recipients. So if you would be able to take a picture with them, we would deeply appreciate it. Do you want to come up here? Yes. Those are just coming through.
May have to double one.
Here we go.
Dr. E, could you come in? this morning? Thank you. But you don't have to do that. Y'all don't have to do that. Go ahead. Yeah, I can see her.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Terry. And then now we have the superintendent report.
That is really a tough act to follow. Congratulations, all you folks, both last year and this year. You've heard me talk in the past about investing in our people and professional development. So I thought I'd give you a little report. We've been just kind of started today in terms of some administrative training. So we had Dr. Todd Triple from Millard Public Schools. Dr. Triple is the Director of Professional Learning at Millard, and he's also a trainer of Fierce Conversations. So Fierce Conversations is really three different models of having different kinds of conversations with folks that administrators supervise. And it was just a great training today. It included all our district level and our building level administrators. So we had that training today. We do have kind of our year-end ADCO retreat tomorrow afternoon, which will be more internal. And then we have Boys Town training for administrators Thursday and Friday of this week. And as you know, we implemented the Boys Town model at the beginning of this year. This just gives the administrators a little bit more background in terms of their role that they play in supporting their teachers with Boys Town. I will be sending out a doodle poll with a lot of different July dates to see if we can set our summer retreat as a board. The agenda items that I have right now will be budget, it'll be superintendent evaluation, it'll be goals and strategic plan. And certainly if we have to add any agenda items to that, we will. So you can expect that doodle poll to go out tomorrow. And then just so the board knows, I will be taking next week as vacation. My wife and I are going to head out to see our oldest daughter. The following week on the 26th, 27th, and 28th, we have our Western Nebraska Administrator Retreat, and that basically is Region 5 superintendents. And we have that retreat at Ogallala. So we're looking forward to that. Questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Do we have any board comments?
I do. I have one. I didn't realize that Madison did a yearbook at the end of the year. And my granddaughter brought it and for us to look at, and I was very impressed with it because I thought maybe it might be a bunch of zero, copied pictures and things. It wasn't. It was a nice little booklet, all in color. And Mrs. Valley and the teachers who put that together, and then all the students were all in charge of it. I was really impressed with it, that they were able to do that over the course of the year. And then the students got them the last day of school. And I had no idea that they did that, but now I do. And they should all be commended because it's very, very well done.
Thank you.
I was able to attend briefly the last blast of summer event. And so I had a couple meetings, but I was able to stop out in between those. And it was very cool to see just how excited everyone was. And I think that's a great way to celebrate the end of the school year for our staff. So I hope that's something that continues. And then before the school year was up, I did attend. I went to Eisenhower and toured around there, and some other people I've mentioned, I had the student ambassadors give me a tour. So that's always fun to see things from their perspective. I also had the opportunity, my niece is a first grader, so I ate lunch with the first graders. And I was very impressed with how, I guess, well managed the cafeteria was. I asked them when lunch was over, and the response I got was when the second graders show up. So they've got a pretty good process, I think, of when to do things, but they, they were all very well behaved going through the line, and Stuart, the Sodexo crew, did a great job getting food served quickly, and so that was a cool experience to see that.
Well, I wanted to say, we just finished up the Miss Nebraska week and we used the high school, and the custodial staff is amazing, like always. It was really nice that we didn't have to leave a big empty space in the commons area this year. So that was very good. Just kudos to the teachers that let us leave glitter all over their classrooms, because Mr. Messner told me today that it was magical when I said I was sorry for all the glitter. So I appreciate that. But the custodians are amazing, and the team sports that are going on right now, just kudos to those coaches that had those kids coming in, and they were just in and out, not worried about our stuff, nothing, messing with nothing. So pretty proud of all the kids, everybody involved. So anybody else? Okay, let's do committee reports. Joanne.
So the Board of Education Personnel, American Civic Curriculum, Student Services and Communication Subcommittee, we met on 11, or this says 11/8. That's not correct. We met on
June
this
6th.
past Tuesday.
June 6th, sorry.
So present were Angela Blasey, Emily Garrick, myself, Kevin Mills, Stuart Simpson, Dr. Rhodes, Erica Johnson, and Lindsay Douglas. We reviewed the purpose and direction. We heard a special education report from Erica Johnson, and she'll be sharing with us again tonight. We also heard a preschool report from Lindsay Douglas, and she will be sharing with us again tonight. We had a staff update from Kevin Mills, and he mentioned that we have a partnership with Mid Plains to use their dorms this summer for temporary housing for the international teachers that will be coming in. And that will give them an opportunity to kind of get situated and look for more permanent housing. And then we had a legislation update from Dr. Rhodes and Stewart. And they noted that there were provisions in LB 705 that will require updates to some of the policies and handbooks. And so those will come before the board for approval at the regular July meeting. And then we reviewed policies, and it was the 3000 series. And then we talked a little bit more about, well, I guess about the first half of the 3000 series. And then we talked a little bit more about 2002, and we'll be talking about all of those again a little bit later. We had resignation letters to view, and the meeting adjourned at 9:25. And I would like to ask if either Emily or Angela had any other comments to make about our subcommittee meeting.
Not really. I really enjoyed the presentations, so we'll all get to see them tonight, but that one's close and near and dear to my heart, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the only thing we'll talk about the policy reviews and discussions that we had a little bit later, but I felt like we had some really good conversations and very fruitful conversations at that subcommittee meeting. So I look forward to sharing that with the rest of the board when we get to that point tonight.
Okay,
That's all for me.
thank you. Matt?
The Finance and Communication Subcommittee met on June 8th. Stuart, Skip, Dr. Rhodes, Cindy, and myself met. We again started the meeting with our purpose and direction. We then had a presentation by Stuart about the need to replace the stadium lights located at the football field. We're working on bids to look at the cost of that replacement. If you need a historical perspective, Skip can tell you all about when those were installed and how long they've been there. So we definitely need to be looking at getting those replaced. We did talk a little bit more this month about the 2023-2024 proposed budget. We're still working on kind of finalizing those calculations, but we at least have a better idea what direction our budget will be going now that the funding bill has passed. And again, as Dr. Rhodes mentioned, we'll talk more about that in depth at our July retreat. As we do almost always for the last 3 years, we talked about ESSERS. ESSERS 2 will end on September 30th of 2023, and ESSERS 3 will then end September of 2024. We identified the remaining funds in ESSERS 2 and reflected on what we'll be doing with ESSERS 3. We will have a discussion tonight on revising some of our ESSERS funding for the bus, so that'll be an action item later. We talked about construction update, especially our McDonald Elementary construction. So far, so good. So I know Stuart's counting down the weeks we have left until students are back in the building, but everything's looking promising at this point. We also talked about legislation. We went over the legislative bills. We again talked about that LB 705, which will require some of those updates. Luckily, we've been working with KSB the last few years, and they're good about, I think they've already updated some of those for us. So we'll be talking about that more in the July board meeting. We discussed our July committee meeting. We'd normally meet on the 6th of July, but since we have the 4th of July holiday, and then we'll be having a lengthy retreat later that month, we're going to go ahead and postpone our July meeting so we can just focus on that budget or that retreat meeting we'll have later. And then we also had an opportunity to look at the resignation letters, and Stuart actually got us out of there a little before 9. So we did good this month. So Skip, Cindy, anything to add?
No, not really. That was complete, Matt.
Thank
What we did.
Appreciate it.
I think the only thing that I would add that I think it's important, we did talk about the interlocal agreement with the
Yes.
city that is on the agenda
Oh,
this
yeah.
evening that we're going to ask for your approval. We didn't have that interlocal by the time that we needed to get the agenda out, but we did talk about that in that finance committee as well.
Yes, and as we'll mention tonight, that's something that we've been discussing in finance subcommittee for a couple of years now.
Couple of years,
So,
yes.
But yes, thank you for adding that.
Okay, now we have our consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure, Robert's rules, provide the consent agenda listing several items for approval of the board by a single motion. Most of the items listed under the consent agenda have gone through board subcommittee review and recommendation. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to assure the extensive and thorough review. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member. We also have the approval of financial claims and reports on that.
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Can I make a note that we need to make sure that the date on the curriculum minutes is adjusted?
I think it is correct. June 6th.
Well, on the
Oh.
agenda, but on the actual, when you
Minutes.
click into the minutes.
Okay.
It has November of 22. So I guess I'd like to make a motion for that amendment to be made to the curriculum subcommittee minutes.
I would second the motion to approve as amended.
Sheila?
Okay, Matthew Peterson,
Aye.
Angela Blazy.
Aye.
Joanna Lynn Green. Aye. Skip Alfie.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Emily Gary.
Aye.
Okay, reports and discussion items. Special education report, Mrs. Johnson. I want to point out that I wore leopard print today and you didn't. It was supposed to be a thing.
That was me last week.
Okay, whatever.
All right. Slide that for me, Sheila. There.
I was doing the amendment. Okay.
Perfect. So I just have a little update. We're going to be talking about Part B. So just a refresher, we have kind of two parts in special education. We have Part C, which is our littlest babies and toddlers. That's birth to 3. And then we have part B, which is 3-year-olds to 21. And that's really our focus for this evening. So our, and you can go ahead and go to the second slide there. I just wanted to show a couple of numbers. Oh, go back.
Sorry.
No, you're
Sorry, my
fine.
mouse is
You're
dead.
fine.
Use my
Sheila, you're
finger.
fine. So these are part B numbers. We put October 1st child count. And we also did the May 1st child count. I just wanted to give you a little brief overview. We're really hovering around that 21% of students that are in special education within the district. So the first count there is the October count, which is at 21.7%. And then the May 1st count is 21.1. So we really are, we're down a little bit, but we're really hovering around that 21% right now. Any questions on that data?
Can you remind us where the state is as far as a state average with special
Sure.
education?
Yeah, so for the probably past 6 years, the state has really hovered around that 15 to 16%. They took a jump last year to 19%. They are back down this year at 16%. So we are and have been above the state average for the last 6 years.
Can you, because we can see obviously that number went down, and I know we talked a little bit about this in our subcommittee, but can you kind of identify when we see a lower number in May than we see in October, where those students have gone? Are they leaving and going somewhere else, or is it that they no longer need services?
So it's either or both. Absolutely. Yep. So students obviously moving in and out of the district. We also have students that no longer need special education services, which is our goal, right? So they have been dismissed from special education through that evaluation process. That's a great question. And then I know in our when we met as a group committee, you guys also wanted to know the 13 categories of special education. I think Joanne is the one that put me on the spot. And so what I did is I just wanted to, if you want to go to the next slide, Sheila, it just tells you all of the categories. And then those are also linked in there. So you can click on them to get more information about each one of them.
I know you're focusing on that group B, I think is what you call it. How many of our students start prior to that and then move into this group? And maybe that's something you'll get into, but how are we identifying these students where they need services once they reach the age of 3?
Okay, so are you asking like if they're in part B and how do they
compound question? So how many of our students that are in part B started prior to reaching the age of 3?
That's a really good question, and I do not have that.
Okay, no, that's fine.
But I can find it. It's an amazing question.
And then I guess the other part is then how do we identify these students and how do they become eligible?
So the reason I kind of wanted to separate and just concentrate on B is because it really is different. So when you talk about part C services, they're not exactly, yes, it's a special education process, but it's really early intervention. So we really look at them to see if they even need part B services. So they might not need part B services, so they're dismissed in that part C, but it really is intervention, and part C is really family based. So when a child becomes eligible through the part C, their plan is really a family plan. So we go into the natural environment, which is their home, and it really is based on family need, where part B is really focused on student need through just really how they are eligible through the education process. So when we talk that through at a meeting, it's not just about scores, but it really is about the need for specialized instruction. So I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yes.
But I just kind of wanted to clarify the difference between the two.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
All right. Next slide, Sheila. So if you want to open that up, what I wanted to do is just give the board a snapshot of all the professional development that the special education department has gone through this year. And I'm really glad that Haley Smiley is here because I want to give her a shout out. She actually really helped create this whole document. So Haley, just give a little wave so everyone knows who you are. So if you click on that.
It didn't pull up.
It pulls up on our side.
Oh, it's thinking. So what it does is every little workshop or it just gives a snapshot of what we did this year. So like we had, well, the biggest one of our bigger ones is Sunday training. So Sunday is a reading intervention that the special education department accesses. And so we want to have resource teachers and paraprofessionals have that training so they can do that intervention with students with fidelity. So that's one of the professional development workshops that we attended. We also have several workshops around autism. We have a special workshop around autism and early childhood combined. So it really does hit those children, babies, infants, toddlers, preschoolers that are eligible through the autism category. So you can, hopefully it works. If not, I can send it out in a separate link so you can really dig into those professional development trainings that our special education teachers have access to, special education staff have access to.
We have it.
Our link works.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I apologize, Sheila.
That's all right.
Could you just move on to the last?
I'd be happy to.
That'd be great. And then I know that you've seen this before, but this is kind of the visual we use in the special education department. Our staff is probably getting tired of me showing it to them. But it really is, we really want to get away from what I call the paperwork show. When we talk to families and we talk to parents and we even talk to teachers about the IEP process, the individualized education plan process. Because it's not a paperwork show. It really is about sitting down with a team and talking about strengths and talking about needs and talking about the student's present level and taking all of that to create goals. And then when the team has goals, we move in and we talk about services and how we're going to serve that student in the education environment. So I just wanted to share the visual with you again.
Thank you. Have any comments?
Could you also maybe review for the other board members, some of the things that you talked about, services that we provide to other schools that are not part of the North Platte Public School District and some of the other things that you do that you shared with us?
Yeah. So my background, before I came here, my background was at an education service unit. And so when I came here, I was very excited to work with the service unit 16. And they provide services for us. So we have a speech language pathologist that we contract with through ESU 16. We also contract deaf and hard of hearing services through ESU 16 and also school psychology. Well, in return, we have a couple of different educators that have a vision degree and also an O&M, which is orientation and mobility specialist. And those two educators, it's not very common to have those. In fact, we were contracting with like Columbus for our O&M specialists before. And now that we have our own staff members that have those two degrees, we're helping ESU 16 out. So they're actually contracting with us. So we provide those two services for some of their school districts.
And then we also provide services to St. Pat's and our Redeemer.
Oh,
as
yep.
well.
Yes, you have such a good memory. Thanks, Joanne. Yeah, just a reminder, we provide services for all students, even some students who are homeschooled or students who attend private schools. Yep.
So kind of just a tack on question, just because I thought this was interesting when you shared it with us in our subcommittee, but can you, and if you don't have these numbers in front of you, that's okay. But can you review with us as a board, like the different number of employees that fall under special education and the different Like I thought it was interesting when you were telling us, like, we have this many of
Yeah.
this specialty type
Yeah,
of a
so
thing.
I might be off a few numbers because I don't have it right in front of me. So forgive me if I'm off by a few numbers, but I do know we have 54 staff members, certified staff members in the district. So obviously there's myself, the director of special ed. We have 2 facilitators, which one of them is Haley Smiley, the other one's Jeff Allen. We have around 9 speech language pathologists. We have 2 occupational therapists. We have 1 physical therapist. We have 1 vision educator. We have 1 O&M, which is the orientation and mobility. We probably have around 20 to 25 resource teachers. I know I'm probably missing an area and I feel bad. Oh, we also have, so our birth to 3 population, we have service coordinators. And so we actually have 2.5 services coordinators, 3 people, but an FTE of 2.5. School psychologist, we have 1 this year that North Platte has hired, and we actually hired an additional 1. So we'll have 2.0 FTE of our own next year.
Stuart, I actually have a question for you related to this. So those services we provide to the parochial schools and then homeschool students, things like that, how does that factor into our budget and reimbursement from the state and those kind of things?
Actually, when we were meeting in the subcommittee the day before, the requirement by Erica is to meet with the private schools because we get a portion of our IDEA funding from the feds that has to specifically be identified to the private schools. And so then we're required to sit down with them and go through what Erica will be servicing, which is resource and speech, correct?
And really anything they need. So we actually provide a resource teacher to the private schools. It's an FTE of 1.0 for next year. So it's 2 different people, but the FTE is a 1.0. And so we go out and serve St. Pat's High School, McDade, and our Redeemer. And then we also serve our speech language pathologist also serves them, our occupational therapists, our physical therapists. It's just like they are our student too. So.
And the dollar amount runs around $70,000 that is automatically pulled off of the IDE allocation directly towards services for the private school.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
Of course.
Now we have our preschool report. Lindsay Douglas and Haley Smiley.
All right, good evening. I'm excited to tell you a little bit about our preschool programming tonight. I have lots of pictures that Sheila's going to pull up. Maybe. Lots of visuals for you. And also Haley Smiley is here. She's coming later in my presentation, but I'll just introduce her now. She is going to be overseeing, or she's called the Early Learning Coordinator for preschool programming next year. So she'll be located at Buffalo Elementary or Buffalo. Gosh, I'm messing this all up. Buffalo Early
Learning Center.
Buffalo Early Learning Center. Sorry.
You're hiding behind my Zoom window. Let me get you.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so go ahead, Sheila, to the next slide. So first of all, just some locations and enrollment information. We do have 4 different locations. We serve 144 students this year. We have Monday through Thursday programming. We don't have preschool on Fridays. A couple of reasons for that is we do home visits. We actually are required by the state to do that 2 times a year. So one of those takes place before school even starts. So they'll start doing those in August, and then they'll do it again in March. Another thing that we do in preschool is family style lunches. So our teachers teach our students how to have lunch and sit down and have a meal. So that's another reason they have very little planning time during the day for those 4 days. So we are able to offer that to them on Fridays. Okay, so just some highlights of our program. One of the highlights is at the end of the year, we do a little feet meet, which is kind of a celebration of all that they've accomplished throughout the year. There's a lot of family involvement in preschool. So we have a family picnic where all the families come together at Buffalo. And then another thing that we're really proud of is our outdoor classroom. It really gives our students an opportunity to learn in nature and in the environment. So that's a good highlight for us as well. We take lots of field trips, lots of unique learning experiences in preschool. So these are some of the opportunities that they've participated in this year. They visited the fire station, went to Dusty Trails, the Golden Spike. They went back to Dusty Trails again in the spring, and they were able to do more with the animals and have a bonfire, things like that. And then they've also visited the Children's Museum this year. And in addition to that, they bring a lot of community visitors into Buffalo to teach them as well. There's some pictures of our teachers there, just a shout out to our wonderful staff. A lot of the learning that happens in preschool is about intentional play and social and emotional development, getting them ready to attend school in the kindergarten setting. So they do a really good job when you go watch them at Buffalo doing that and being very intentional about their teaching. So we've brought lots of community visitors in to also expose them to many different opportunities this year. A little bit about our preschool curriculum. So they use the resource that's called 3 Cheers for Pre-K. All of our curriculum unit guides, they have them all mapped out, and they are aligned to the state's early learning guidelines, which are the Nebraska Department of Education standards for preschool. They use for their report card, it's called Teaching Strategies Gold, and that's their reporting tool. And they do a lot of assessing, a lot of tracking of development over the course of the year. It's a big requirement of them. They've worked really hard on their pyramid practices implementation, which that promotes young children's healthy social and emotional development. And we're really unique in the fact that our teachers are all aligned, using the same curriculum. They have access to the same resources. They're working towards the same objectives and providing the same experiences or similar experiences across the district, whether you're at any location or any classroom within that. So that's pretty unique right now across the state. So I'm really proud of the fact that we're very aligned in that way. All right. Oh, so this is a great celebration. So 119 of our current kindergarten students did attend a North Platte Public School preschool. So 45% of our kindergarten students. And go ahead to the next slide. What we did at the beginning of the year is we looked at the map data of all of our incoming kindergarten students. So we looked at our reading achievement and our math achievement. And really by no accident, I think it was very like all of the extra things that we've done in preschool really show that this success. And so our reading achievement of all of the students that attended a public preschool was higher than all of them on average. So their reading achievement was at the 52nd percentile versus the 44th for all of them. And then our math was the 72nd versus the 77th. And then versus the 72nd for all of ours. So I'm really proud of that fact. They've worked really hard. And I think all of our intentionality and all our program development and alignment in preschool really shows. All right. So Haley Smiley, like I said earlier, she's going to be the early childhood coordinator at Buffalo next year. And I'm going to let her talk a little bit about the future involvement.
Yeah, so we have a lot of exciting things going on next year. So we were able to get a grant to increase our enrollment capacity to 162. And so that means we got to hire a new preschool teacher. And so we've been really working with her on getting things ready for her classroom. So that's really exciting. We will work to continue gathering data using that teaching strategies for gold to inform our instruction and align that. And then we're excited to potentially expand the servicing of families at the Buffalo Learning Center. So.
See, I did know what I was talking about. I had it all on the slide. I just. Do you guys have questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I just, from personal experience, I think this is a tremendous program, what we have over there at Buffalo, because I had a grandson that went through that he was there 2 years ago. And the growth that we saw in him during that time was just tremendous. And so I'm not surprised by how the ones that are attending our preschools score a little higher than those who didn't. But it's just a great program, and the more that we can get in there, the better off we will be.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I think you maybe mentioned this in subcommittee that it might be an option moving forward, but I'm curious, is there a way in future years that we can track not just like a lump sum of everybody, but like identify who went to preschool elsewhere and be able to compare those numbers? Because I'm sure there probably are kiddos that don't go to preschool at all,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Is that something that moving forward, we might be able to look at that data?
Yes, absolutely. That was something that we really felt was missing this year. Is we had some students that would come to kindergarten and we didn't realize that they didn't attend preschool. So that is one of our screening questions now on our enrollment is, did you attend preschool? And if so, where? So that we can have a little bit more access to other data and where they came from. So
You talked a little bit about expansion, which I think is awesome. Has there been any discussion about expanding it to 2 years for kids versus just that year right before kindergarten?
yeah, we have had preliminary discussions around that. Yeah. So I think there is a need in our community for that in some capacity.
Do we know, like, feasibility wise, if we're at 100, and how many students is going to be this next year? 170.
162. Yeah.
Do we have an idea what might be the max for our space and that kind of stuff right now?
We do. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we have been looking at that facility for future growth and kind of anticipating that program to grow. We do want to be able to serve every student that needs that in our community.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. I appreciate you guys doing everything you can to try to expand it, because I know we talk about it all the time, but that pre-K stuff is so important to our students and their development. So I think the more we can do for our community, the better.
This is a question I hadn't thought of previously, but do we have any English learner students that we're serving in the preschool?
That is a good question. And I do not believe that we did this last year. So I can't remember off the top of my head, but
Going along with what they're talking about expanding the classrooms, I just want to let the board know we're going to be also installing at least a restroom for the new classroom, because with working with preschool kids, we want to make sure we have our eyes on them all the time. And so keeping them in the classroom will be very beneficial. So just to let you know, we'll be looking at starting next week on construction up there.
yeah, and I want to commend Stuart for supporting that. That was something that came from the teachers, that they really were passionate about getting restrooms in their classrooms. So it wasn't disrupting their day. So thank you.
Thank you. Staffing update, Mr. Mills.
Good evening, everyone. No compound lawyer questions for Kevin Mills, okay? Not a lot to report. We do have, as you notice on the consent, we do have 4 new employees. We're excited about that. And one of the things I explained to the subcommittee, one of those areas that we cannot recruit in is individuals out there that want to become a teacher and take the alternative certification route. And we have 2 of those this year. We just hired the second one. So that's very exciting to know that there's individuals out there that still want to go into teaching and they've been in another career. So I always meet with them and we kind of walk through that process, and then we do an official interview and all those different steps. And then we work with UNK to work with those individuals. So we're very excited to have those individuals come on board. Along with, we did hire, I think I explained to the subcommittee, we had a teacher that was willing to step outside the classroom and walk into special education with Erica's team. So that created an elementary opening, which I'd hired an extra elementary teacher, which worked out nicely. So we did some shifting and was able to get all those positions covered. And then we did hire, as Erica mentioned, one of the school psychs that we were contracting with. Now we have them on our payroll here with us. So we're excited about that. And another part-time special education resource teacher. The other update I had given to the subcommittee, wanted to make sure to the full board. I've been in contact with Teach USA, continue to do communication with them. Currently, they're waiting to apply for visas with the US Embassy in the Philippines. And once they get their stamp for that passport, they'll start to work with the Filipino government to get flights out. So it's getting closer, and more information to come. As soon as that next step happens, then flights will book. And as Joanne mentioned, we did work with Mid-Plains to use their dorms for a couple months. So we're really grateful for that collaboration. Other than that, I don't have much information for you. I will entertain any questions now.
I'll try to be a little more clear this time. A couple of things on our international teachers. Are any of them bringing students with them?
No, they can only come by themselves.
It's just them. Okay.
Yeah, good. That's a good
Just
question.
them. Okay.
Yeah, on J1. Yeah, I've talked to some other districts. I was at the HR state convention in Nebraska City this weekend, and that was, Thursday and Friday. And a lot of conversation about a lot of districts, not only Nebraska, but everywhere are going this route with international teachers because of obviously the teacher shortage. And it does feel good sometimes too. And I talk to my colleagues to know that obviously they're experiencing the same things with lack of teachers applying for jobs and having that shortage. So it is everywhere. I know that's not good news, but we're all on the same page with that.
And then with some of the new changes in the legislation that'll allow for either people maybe with expired licenses or things like that to kind of renew those. Have we thought about any sort of like incentive program if we do have someone who maybe wants to do something like that, of looking at helping to maybe offset some of those costs or things along those lines?
I think we're open to all ideas at this time, as we've reached out to retired teachers, reaching out to everyone that we can. And that was a lot of conversation that we had as well. What type of incentives can be used? And one colleague shared, I think it'd be important to know that money is, we sometimes think that that's the incentive, but one district offered, I think, up to $12,000 for specialized fields for special education, and it didn't even make a dent in it. So a lot of us sometimes think if we do that added, everybody's doing bonuses, we're all doing that, but they reported back that they gave up a pretty hefty amount of money, and that didn't even really, move the needle at all. But we're open to all ideas to be creative to help folks out. And I think with the praxis core going away, I think that's a big piece. It's going to help some individuals that might have struggled with that removed another barrier. The legislature did that piece this year as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kevin, I have a question. It's great that the college is letting our foreign teachers use the dorms. Is there a cost to us for that?
Yes, it's $15 a day.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm working with the college, and I worked with Stuart to give, all they need is the names and then the dates. So we don't quite have the dates yet, but we did get that covered and worked with finance to be able to cover that.
Okay, thank you.
$15 a day. Good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Hey, monthly financial and budget report, Mr. Simpson.
So, first of all, we've been converting our accounting system to more of the cloud-based system, which has been giving us a little bit of struggle. So I will mention that a little bit as we go through our financial report, but we're continually working through those steps and making sure that we get it taken care of. Our first focus is payroll this week. So, as we get this taken care of, we want to get that submitted and done, and then everything else we can clean up after that. But I want to do a shout out to our county. And I can look at Cindy too, because over the years, we've always had to go down and pick up the county check, because depending upon the month, and our biggest month, if you remember, is May and August, or May and September right in there, because we're getting large amounts of checks. Well, this last May, we received $10 million in property tax coming in, or taxes, I should say, coming in to the school district. Well, our county treasurer has been implementing an online payment for the process. And so actually the payment for May taxes that came in June actually were wired to us. So now, number one, I'm going to say it's more secure because it's going between bank account and bank account. And then second of all, we're not having to go down and pick it up and then write out a deposit slip and deposit it into our bank account. So kudos to the county to get this taken care of so that we don't have to drive around and get a $10 million check now and just walk it back and forth between banks. So thank you very much. But with that, when you go through our financial report, and Sheila, I'm going to bring it up and sort of walk through this with you. But first of all, we will not see enrollment reports until probably the end of September because we're now in the summer months. Look over at Kyle. We're uploading our full year of student data so that we can verify the number of students and the FTE that comes in, because that's number one, always as we talk about budget, aligns with how our state aid calculation go. And so they'll be using those numbers to do a respin on state aid down the road. So actually making sure that everything gets uploaded correctly, and Kyle and I will work through that process. So as you're looking through the financial reports, and I always like to hit my balance sheet, but the couple of items that are out there. First of all, if you go to, I think I want to say page 4, Sheila. Page there, back one. And then we'll go to the next one. This is an asset allocation. I picked it up and as I told you from a meeting that I went to, but really just shows how much assets that we have in the district based upon each of our funds that we oversee. And then the period in time, which is at the end of May for the school district. And then how much payroll that we go through on each year. And so you can see sort of the changes throughout the last 5 years. If you go to the next page, Sheila, that'll just address our graph. That really talks about we should be at 75%. And based upon the individual area that we're looking at, whether it's instruction, SPED, building and grounds, transportation, you can see those items being completed. One place would be transportation, but obviously we're at the end of the fiscal year, so they're basically done. We have a few transportation issues going on with our early learning or extended learning opportunity and ESY over at Lincoln, but for the most part, then transportation is completed. If you go to the next page now, we'll show you the cash flow. And as I mentioned, we got $10 million in from the county. So obviously that pops it back up to close on where we want to be. And then this next month will get us up to where we need to be. And then we'll be monitoring it over the summer until we get to August, and the accrual of the property taxes accordingly. Other than that, so if you go a couple more pages, Sheila, one more. Yes. So I mentioned that we were having some changes with our new accounting system and really how it presented itself to the board. And I really want to be clear and concise as I report information to you. Well, this is, I call it the income statement from an accounting standpoint, but really it's a statement of changes in revenue to expense for the district in more of a fund accounting terms. But really what would happen with the new system would give you 4 pages of information in multiple spaces. So what I had to do is take it, download it into a spreadsheet and try to clean it up to make it a little bit more presentable. And if you would go back to the previous couple of months, we could have that 1-page report, because showing that information sometimes, I know looking at numbers may or may not be intriguing to people, but really I want to at least be clear and concise on what you're looking at. But then if you go down to, we could just take you to, if you go down to, maybe we'll do the bond fund or the building fund, Sheila. And I can't say what page it is on. Keep going. Couple more. One more. One more. We'll just do one more. Thank you. This is the building fund, and this is what came off of our accounting system, and it is a little bit more specific in regards to, and it's a one-page report to you. Just for my purposes on how I'm reporting it to you, have some spaces in it, but still it's a comparison report of what we've done in the past. So for my purposes, hopefully I'm presenting it clear and concise. It's just change formatting that doesn't please me, but hopefully it's clear and concise to you. And the last thing I want to say is Monday, August 28th, 2023, we're still planning for the budget hearing. And at that point in time, we'll know if we do have a property tax hearing or not. We will be receiving preliminary evaluations this month. So we'll have a better idea of where we'll stand in regards to the property tax hearing coming in August, September. Questions? Hey, separate and apart from the building and finance and budget report, I just want to do a little bit of update. Matt made a comment that we talked a little bit about McDonald. At this point in time, we have 7 weeks left. We are working with Ryan Stearns and Hughley and Associates to make sure that McDonald is taken care of and ready to go. If you go into that building, you will see no ceilings. We have walls. They're working now diligently to put in the HVAC projects. We're hoping for contractors to be in there to get the vestibules in. We know the east wing has HVAC units in, and they'll be starting this week to get ceilings put in. I know Dr. Rhodes, Lori, and myself go in there almost every day to make sure what the status is and where we are in regards to the construction at McDonald. But we're really monitoring that hard because of the number of remaining weeks that we have in this summer. So.
Any questions? Comments? Thank you. The legislative update.
I'll make a comment just on 2 items that I've watched, and then I'll let Dr. Rhodes and Skip comment accordingly. But the first one is 583, and I talked to the finance committee in regards to our budget, and we were waiting for the certification of state aid, and we do have that after it came in after we had the finance committee. But if remember the comments as we were monitoring that bill going through, they talked about foundation aid. And really it takes $1,500 and gives it to every student in the state of Nebraska. Well, for an equalized district such as North Platte or Kearney or Grand Island, it just shifted numbers. It just took it from this bucket of equalization aid and gave it to us in foundation aid. So when you look at our total state aid for next year, the number didn't change, compared to another district that not only did they not receive equalization aid, but now they get foundation aid. So they've increased their revenue in state aid compared to North Platte Public Schools. So we want to make sure that we make it clear to everybody of how this revenue became a shift for North Platte Public Schools, and we really are not seeing any additional increase in state aid for foundation aid. The other piece we will be addressing is how the SPED reimbursement will be coming in the next couple of years for North Platte Public Schools, and how that will affect our budget based upon what Eric and I do for the SPED final financial report coming up in this year and the next coming years for legislation. And then the last piece I want to mention is LB 243. It's the 3% revenue cap. NDE sent out a spreadsheet and gave at least Dr. Rhodes and myself an idea of where our total property tax revenue for the building fund and the general fund could be. I'm not saying it will be, because it's all contingent upon valuation and what type of revenue that can be raised from that piece. So mostly we're just monitoring at this point in time until we get certified valuations in or at least preliminary evaluations in, and then we can monitor where we need to be as far as our overall budget is concerned. And now I'll turn it over to them.
You handled that very well as far as those specifics, but a lot of this is going to have to wait and see how it comes out. And one of the things that we talked about in our committee is how some of the bills on the Christmas tree are very poorly written, and they will have to be cleaned up next year. And that is probably going to be one of the biggest goals in the 60-day session that they have next year versus what it was at 88 days this year. They didn't go the 90, but some of those bills will have to be cleaned up. Plus, there's a bunch of other bills still that sit in committee that could come out, plus the introduction of new bills. So we'll be meeting again in August, I think August 11th. We're going to meet again in Lincoln. So they'll have a pretty good idea on who is going to be trying to do certain things by then. So.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would mention that, when you have a bill that has 22 or 23 bills that are embedded in it, you're going to have really, really good legislation. You're going to have really, really bad legislation. And as Skip said, there'll be some technical cleanup that'll happen during the next session on some of those bills. But we did finally receive policy updates from KSB. We received those Thursday afternoon, so we didn't have time to get all those on this agenda. Some of the 3000s are policy changes based on what happened in this legislative session and KSB's update of those policies. But we'll bring all those policies that are updated to the July meeting. We're actually going to hold off on the back of the 3000s until August, but July will be all the updates of existing policies and then also the handbooks. We have some pretty significant changes that'll be going into our handbooks as well that came from the session. So.
Okay, let's review revisions on our policies. Dr. Rhodes?
Well, and thank you to Emily and the committee. This can be kind of tedious work to go through and review policy. The policy, we reviewed all policies 3001 through 3023. The 9 policies, and actually there are 3023. There are no changes to it got added in, but we do have 8 policies that are revised just either with the recommendation of updates from KSB or some wording changes. I will tell you that Sheila is going through and formatting all the policies, whether that be the font, whether that be page numbers. We kind of have a melting pot of policy formats. And so Sheila's been working on that for us. So I think I would ask Emily or any of the committee members to address these as well. The thing I would say, you have a hard copy in front of you, and then we do have these policies attached within our agenda as well for anybody in the public to see. The changes are highlighted on both the hard copy and the electronic copy as well. 3001, 3003.1, and 3004.1 were KSB updates. With the exception on 3001, we added in on proposed budget, the superintendent or designee was added in. And then on page 2, the monthly report, we also added in or designee. The change from KSB dealt with LB 243 and that 3% cap on growth as it relates to property taxes. So they did change that portion of 3001 as well. Otherwise, 3001 had no other changes. Anything the committee would add to that, or any questions from any of the board members? 3003.1 and 3004.1 adds by American language into it. And while that's not required, it is a suggested changed and is highly recommended. Anytime you're looking at federal contracts specifically, you really need that Buy American clause in there. And so those were changes again to 3003.1 and 3004.1, and those were KSB changes as well. 3009 is our audit policy. And we took a look at this and the language in this suggests or says that the Board of Education shall appoint a certified public accountant. And I think it's vernacular more than anything, but we actually have you approve a contract with a certified public accountant. So the change in 3009 was shall appoint or approve the contract of a certified public accountant. And, Mr. Simpson could speak to this as well. Generally, that will be a 2 or 3 year commitment with the CPA. And I have some professional experience in putting out requests for proposals for school audits. And I will tell you, and I think Mr. Simpson would tell you the same thing. People do not want to do school audits. And so we need to kind of keep our firm happy. And so that's kind of the reason that we generally go with a multi-year contract as it relates to our audit. Any questions on 3009? 3012 was just a very, very small wording change towards the bottom of the first page. This talks about once that student has reached $0 in their account, they get 5 what is known as courtesy meals. And what the policy had said was, I believe, a basic sandwich. Is that correct, Joanne? And I think Joanne caught that. And that is not our practice. We actually provide a basic meal to the student. So we kind of had the policy reflect actually what we do for practice. And quite honestly, this is we feed our kids past 5. But we felt, and I don't want to speak for the committee, but I think we felt like we still needed some teeth in the policy, that if times got kind of tough economically, that we might have to put the policy into effect. But right now we provide meals for our kids regardless of kind of where they're at. Our foundation does a great job of providing financial support for meals. We have internal folks that will buy meals for kids, and then we have a lot of external individuals and groups out in our community that help support Sodexo, and those funds always go in to support feeding our kids. So questions on 3012 that anybody has? Okay. 3017, we just kind of tightened up. Only individuals who have prior administrative approval may issue press releases. That was a little loose, so we wanted to make sure that we had that administrative approval in there. Joanne, do you have anything to add to that one?
Well, I would just mention maybe that we did have some really good conversation. I asked about Tina's role in that administrative approval. And so it was really good conversation, just making sure that she's involved as well as the building administrators and others. So I think we have a really good process. So as long as we stick to that, I think we'll be good.
Good. 3021 had some fairly significant changes to it. The business hours, I think, were 8 to 4:30. Is that correct, Stuart? And actually our business hours are 7:30 to 4. And so we made that change reflect to what our hours actually are. And then the old policy had spelled out the actual holidays. And due to the fact that holidays, I mean, they don't always change, but for instance, Juneteenth is something that is fairly new. Some organizations give that day as a holiday, others do not. So we wanted to kind of reflect what is designated in our employee handbook as it relates to holidays. So instead of listing all of them, we referred to the holidays that are designated within the handbook. on 3021. Anything from the committee on 3021? And then the last one was 3022. And the big change was on number 3. This deals with volunteers. And the original policy said the district may require a criminal background check. We actually require a background check. So we wanted to make sure that we reflected again what our practice is. And then we actually, if you look at number 2 and it talks about a volunteer service agreement, we do not have a volunteer service agreement on file. And so KSB is working on that document for us. And then we will issue that out to volunteers so that we have that service agreement on file as well. So those are the revisions to those 8 policies on those first half of 3000s. The other policies within 3001 to 3023 had no change. One of the things you will notice as you look at the footer on these policies is we have a review date that we put in as of the board meeting. If there's a revision, even minor, then you will see a revision date as of the board meeting as well. Revisions don't require any action as a board. If there's significant changes within the policy, then we'll ask for a first reading and a second reading and then adoption. So anything from the committee that you would add on those 3000s?
I think I just want to add that we did have some really good and productive conversation on a lot of these changes. It's nice when you have questions that the answers are readily available to you. And so it was really good to be able to further understand some of the things that the district does so that we can make sure that our policies are reflecting those things.
I just want to add a thank you to Sheila for cleaning up the formatting on these because some of these were a little rough to read through, like when there's 16 pages and there's no indentations of different sections. So I want you to know that I know that's not a fun job, but it will make our future policy reviews so much more enjoyable. So thank you.
And we appreciate you. I don't know about enjoyable, but we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay. The review and discuss board policy 2002.
Okay, so if you remember, in May, we actually had this as a first reading. And again, I don't want to speak on behalf of the committee, but I think the committee felt like there was still some more editing to do on this policy. So I would just remind you, in May, on number 1, we put as established by law as it relates to the election of board members per ward. And so we had that change. The other significant change with this policy is we grabbed all the language of committees and subcommittees out and we pulled it out and created a new policy. And so really the discussion the committee had was around kind of what the January meeting and the process that we had in board policy for the election of officers. And so I think with that, I would just turn it over to the committee members to talk a little bit about kind of maybe what their recommendation is moving forward. And I would just encourage the board to have a discussion about that.
I will start. So I felt like we had some good conversation just in our May board meeting. And walking out of that meeting, it felt like there probably wasn't a single person sitting around these tables that thought the policy was great as it was. So we went back to the drawing board with it a little bit and took those recommendations that we heard at that meeting. So we did alter, instead of having 10 votes, we all kind of agreed that probably after 5 votes, if there's a tie, probably not a lot's going to change 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we did change that there. I think that was one of Skip's recommendations last month, and we all felt that was an appropriate change. And then another piece that we added in there, and we as a committee or as a subcommittee kind of went back and forth on whether or not this should be in policy or whether or not it was an understood, you can have discussion in meetings. But we did land on, we felt like there needed to be something in our policy about how discussion can happen during that presidential election piece of our meeting. So technically, yes, once a nomination has been made and there's a second, we can have discussion, but knowing that's the first meeting for sometimes new board members, they may not understand those processes. It's kind of an uncomfortable meeting at times. And so the sitting board president will actually call for discussion after nominations and kind of open that up so everyone knows that they have a time that it's appropriate to share if they have been nominated or if they have nominated somebody or if somebody has any questions. And I think that was Joanne's suggestion. And I thought that really, I think will help the flow of that meeting a lot better. I brought up a conversation, I brought it up last month. I'm going to bring it up again. It is not in here. So if we add something like this, I apologize, but we're going to punt this policy to have another first reading, which we don't need it till January. So I think that's okay. But I personally, I'm speaking on behalf of me as a board member, not as our subcommittee. I personally am still not a fan of the coin flip. And here is why. Our board president has a really important job that sometimes maybe as a board, we forget how important that is. And I think maybe our public doesn't always understand that, but our board president is ultimately the person who has final say in our agenda. And as a board, we can't operate or make decisions outside of an organized meeting and what's on our agenda. And so it really is an important job. I don't mean to be punny in saying this, but we shouldn't be so flippant about who is our board president. And I don't think that a coin flip is really the best way to start off our year, just leaving it to chance. So I would like to have some conversation as a board about that. I know it will probably be an unpopular opinion, but mine would be that we table that decision and we hold a special meeting. The current president could remain president for another week or whatever that may look like. We come back, everybody's had a chance to think, maybe prepare something to say, and we bring that back to the table because I think as a board, I just would like to see us start a year off working together and figuring out how to bring our differing opinions and still land with a president that we all feel comfortable about. So that's my opinion. That may not be the opinion of the rest of the subcommittee, but Joanne, Angela, do you guys have anything else to add from our subcommittee conversation? Or does anyone have an opinion on the coin flip?
I have a split opinion on the coin flip. I don't want to come back for another meeting, but I understand exactly what you're saying. It seems circusy.
I guess my opinion would be that we leave the coin flip in there. I understand where you're coming from, but I mean, we realistically could be at a dead end forever. And I think we need to have something in there that says, okay, at some point we got to move past this. Let's get someone in that position and move forward. I mean, I know there's districts in the state that have gone rounds and rounds and rounds. And I feel like almost by doing that, we're almost drawing more attention to it, and that becomes the focus rather than let's get someone appointed and let's conduct business as we need to. So I would not be in favor of removing anything that basically gives us a dead end of, okay, let's just do this and let's get it done.
I agree with Matt on that. I think the 5 is much better than the 10. I really do. And then the discussion thing I think is excellent. But I agree that there has to be, because if you come back the next week and you have the same thing that happens, you know, it could be an ongoing, just continue and continue and continue. So I agree with you. There needs to be something final at that meeting for each part. So if the coin flips that, then that's what it is. So I agree with you on that. But I really like the 5 instead of the 10. And then the discussion part, I think, is really good as well.
Well, and just thinking, so if you do a special meeting and it does go back to a tie, and then you have to do a second one and a second one. So what do you do in April when you haven't really had a meeting?
I would say we'd have to put something in there that is some sort of a cap somewhere. Whether that's a coin flip or it's I think there's other options out there. The coin flip is probably the best tiebreaker as far as fairness and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I wouldn't advocate for continually tabling it indefinitely. But I just think that sometimes, and I think this has probably happened to me, maybe I'm the only one, but sometimes you walk out of a meeting and you go, ooh, I should have asked that question, or I don't feel like I got this question answered all the way, or I wish I had shared this, or sometimes there are just things that when you leave a meeting and you have time to process, sometimes my vote would change after a meeting possibly. So that was kind of my thinking. Ideally, knowing that you were going to table it and have to come back the next week would motivate us as a board to have some healthy and candid conversation and come to a consensus at the end of the first meeting, I think is my thought process. If there's a coin flip at the end, I mean, is anybody really going to change their vote after the first tie? Or are you just going to keep tying and leave it up to a coin flip? So
I do think that adding the discussion in there makes it a little bit more,
yeah,
I don't know, professional looking than just tie, coin flip. Because then at least you are discussing as a board and trying to collaborate on reasons for nomination.
Anything else on 2002? Well, the only policies that I know of, I know the old Perry policy that we did have as a district before we switched KSB had nothing in. And KSBs did have an option A and an option B. Option A was the coin flip after the 10 times. And then the other option was if you had two people that were tied over those 10 votes, one would be president for the first 6 months, and then the other one would be president for the back half of the 6 months. And so those were the only options that they had at that time. So to my knowledge, I don't know if we've gotten a lot of legal input on different types of options that are out there, just based on kind of those that they recommend. I would just remind you that you do not have, after January, if you don't vote a president in, you cannot conduct business. You don't have a president, which I think for Mr. Simpson and I, the worry is, hey, we've got bills to pay, which you have to approve. We've got payroll that we've got to get people paid. And so there are some time constraints with that as well.
Right.
That's just a worry I have. If you were at a standstill and you didn't have the coin flip and you had to call a special meeting, we'd have to do that relatively quickly to make sure that we could conduct business as a school district.
Could we discuss this at a board retreat next month?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. We can
Well,
put that
let's-
on the agenda.
Let's do that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because there's really not a hurry on us approving this policy. I'd rather see us feel like we've explored all options and feel good about it. I think we're already
Better than we were.
arguably much better than we were before. So we're heading the right way.
Yeah, we have actually until December to
Yeah.
get the vote on it. So it's implemented by January. So I think it's a good idea, Cindy. I really do.
Me too. Public comment. Public questions and comments may take place at this time in the agenda. Individuals who want to address the board must complete a guideline for public comments form with the date, topic, addressing, name, address, and name of any organization you represent, and give it to the board clerk prior to the meeting. Sheila, do we have any?
I have none.
Action item. Approved purchase of a coach style bus. Mr. Simpson.
Okay, over the last, as we talked about from the finance committee, 3 years, we've been continually talking about ESSERS 2, 3. I will say 1, but that was pretty much over and done within 1 year. In ESSERS 3, we had put the purchase of 2 buses, and we've gone through all of last year a discussion about how to implement busing in North Platte. I can look over at Mr. Mills. He has been continually advertising for bus drivers and received 0 inclination on wanting to apply for that. So, we still want to use, we number one, need to use the money before in a year. But second of all, just to continue to help improve our fleet, what we'd like to do is purchase a motor coach that will replace our Van Hool that is out there, plus trade in our 3 Type A buses that we had been authorized to do at a previous board meeting with a cost of $150,000. We had placed within ESSER's 180,000 to purchase 2 buses. This has given us now an opportunity to just replace one and get a better one in there for at least our students transporting over the road to and from activities that we have around the state. You'll see the quote from Buses and More, which is in Bloomington, Minnesota. We have worked through this company before on various other buses as well as repair and maintenance on items. So that's what we're looking at as far as replacement is concerned. Questions about this?
Stuart, in the subcommittee, we did talk about this motor coach having 275,000 miles. And I think we discussed a little bit on how many miles you said that a motor coach will get.
Yeah, good question. I forgot about that one. Normally on a engine in any of our buses, especially diesels, will go between 500 to 1,000,000 miles on an engine. And then as we look at buses that we've had within the district, Van Hools are not the most, we'll just say, reliable. MCIs and other models we have noticed have been better for North Platte, and they will go between 500 to 1,000,000, depending upon the care that a school district will put into a bus. So for our purposes, this will at least go another twice as many miles to up to 1,000,000, depending upon the maintenance. And I will say this, with our bus barn that we do have and keeping them inside, that gets them out of the weather. So then with that, we don't have to worry about them sitting outside, and then the weather and everything else deteriorates them just a little bit quicker than if we keep them inside. So that's how long we can go with a coach.
Stuart, I have a question. So you had mentioned that we had allotted 180,000, is that correct, towards purchasing buses?
Yes.
Okay. Was that per bus, or that was total for 2 buses initially allotted?
That's what I have allocated in the SR3 budget for bus purchases.
Got you. Is that, I mean, I assume we all are active members of the economy, so we all know prices on things have gone up. Is that kind of part of, initially, maybe we thought we could get a couple buses with that amount, or?
At that point in time, we were thinking we could get at least 2 yellow buses at about 90,000 each.
Okay.
That was what a normal yellow bus was running. I'm not going to say, after we went through COVID and the price increases what it was, but that's what we had started out with in our ESSOS program for bus allocation. And so now we really want to go back and just use some of those dollars for this piece.
Okay, so a lot of that change is probably the fact that it's a motor coach and not yellow buses.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, yes, that is a good
That
point.
makes
Yes.
sense.
Yep.
On that note, we also talked that the reason why we're switching to this is because the things that we're going to need it for, like over the road trips for activities and athletics and things like that, is we're going to use that more than we would a yellow bus, because we're not looking at the transportation in-town transportation, at least at this point.
Correct. Yeah, we're not looking at doing the bus transportation that we had discussions, just from the mere fact that we cannot get bus drivers, and we're blessed that we have our bus drivers that we have, that we can transport students with activities. And I will say this, we will continue to do our Madison Adams route no matter what. We may consolidate that a little bit just because of what we have in the economy, as well as just keeping that going. But if we do have an opportunity where we have to take all of our bus drivers, our Robin Volley and James Ayers at our two middle schools have worked with the parents to let them know in a quick amount of time that certain activities take precedence over that middle school route so that they can make adjustments accordingly.
Is that going to happen more often? I mean, so if we're trading in, are we trading in 3 or 4 buses?
Oh, we're trading in our
Coach?
3 type A white. If you look at those white
Right,
little stub
Those are the
buses.
ones that hold 14.
Yeah.
right,
students,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
They will
we're
not
gonna
affect
use
our,
the coach to do what the small buses do, right?
no,
So-
those small buses, we don't really use because we use our coaches more because we have a lot more students out for any of activities. We can look at tennis to volleyball to basketball. We use our coaches more because our coaches are reaching out, and I say coaches, but I mean, you could look at speech, you could look at band. They're reaching out and recruiting more and more students to come into their program. So we have to eliminate those type A buses and go more toward coaches to do that. It will not affect, right now we had maybe 1 or 2 dates every month that affected our Madison and Adams. And even if we consolidate to 1 bus for that route, it's still not going to modify the number of days that we service those students. And we may have 1 or 2 dates just because as we get into the thick of a season, depending upon fall, winter, or spring, they become scheduled on those dates that all of a sudden interfere with what we're trying to do. And so we had about two times, and I'm not going to say it was on a Friday because depending upon the week, especially in the spring, they're holding track on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Soccer the same way, and it could affect the same amount, but I don't see it affecting any more than what we currently have.
So is the vinyl lettering an additional cost?
Yeah, what that is that, and I'll look at the back wall that Tina designed for North Platte Public Schools. We continually take that logo or the one up here and place that on all our buses. So that is our cost because it's unique to North Platte Public Schools so that when we drive into a community, they know where we're from and what it is. And you know, I'm gonna date myself, but I remember when North Platte would come out with their bus to activities and you would see them driving up into a coach bus and other school districts are coming in yells, and that just meant something. So if we can put lettering on here where they come into a school, and anymore when you see, I want to say Gearing, Hershey, Maxwell, I've seen them come into town with their big coach buses. It really stands out and really sends a message to the other teams that we're coming into town, and this one for us too. So that's what the vinyl lettering is for, but it's our cost, not theirs.
So does that play into the 180 that you have set aside? Because right now you are coming in under budget, which is great.
Yes, no, the vinyl lettering will be brought out of our transportation part. This one's just going to be the bus in specific, and then everything else will come out of there. But it's going to be less than $1,000 for the lettering.
Okay.
I would move to approve the purchase of a coach style bus as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Sheila?
Joanne Lingreen.
Aye.
Skip Altick.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Emily Garrick.
Aye.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
Angela Blazy.
Aye. Okay. The interlocal agreement with the city of North Platte for the joint use of the city competition swimming pool.
So this is something that the city and the district have talked about for, probably a couple of years. I think it was probably a year ago this past February that the mayor presented to the finance committee, for those of you that were on the finance committee, about kind of a long-term commitment through an interlocal agreement with the district that these funds would really provide maintenance for either the existing pool or for a new pool. And of course, we now know that eventually we're going to have a new pool. So just so you know, the mayor sent this over to me. We did have Steve Williams, who's kind of the guru with KSB as it relates to contract law. Steve did make some changes on behalf of the school district. We sent those back to the city. This city legal counsel approved those. And so we're bringing that here to you tonight. I think the things to mention are, this is a 10-year commitment from the district, $36,000 annually that goes again into a city maintenance fund specifically for the pool. It also provides for district use at a priority level during the months of November through February. And so that's competitions and practices as well. The only thing that we kind of talked back and forth about with Mr. Simpson and with Steve Williams was this does have a rollover clause in it, but it's year to year. And so, 10 years is a long way out. And I know one of the things Mr. Simpson and I talked about is having experience with these interlocals. Generally, when you get to the end of that long term, you usually redo the interlocal, and you're just not doing it year to year, because that isn't good for either entity. Because of inflation, they might raise it from one year to the next, or whatever the case may be. So I think once the 10 years runs out, I probably won't be around in 10 years, but if I were to be around in 10 years, we would certainly work with the city to draw out a new interlocal agreement. So Stuart, you want to add anything to that?
No, that was the big discussion in regards to what we had about this agreement coming forward. But I just want to remind the board, when we had that discussion a year ago with the mayor at that point in time, the piece is that we'll be using 36,000 out of the building fund, because obviously this is going toward support of buildings, and we'll be transferring that money accordingly to the city when they invoice us for the project. But yes, we're going to be using property taxes, but that's the essence of where we are.
And the first payment won't actually be until the pool is operational. So
that is correct.
We're proving it now, but
I think what the city is trying to do is any of these relationships that will be contractual in nature, they want to get those done before they go out for bids with contractors and subcontractors. Then, of course, with bonding as well, they'll want those contracts and interlocals in place prior to that.
And we obviously mentioned this earlier too, but I mean, this is not something that just popped up. We've been discussing it for over a year now, and throughout, even during the time between we've initially had the discussion and now we've had other discussions at the subcommittee meetings, and kind of informally had that discussion. And I think we had a consensus that this is something the district wanted to support. I would move to approve the interlocal agreement with the city of North Platte for joint use of the city competition swimming pool as presented.
Second.
More discussion? Sheila?
Skip Altick,
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor,
Aye.
Emily Garrick,
Aye.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
Angela Blazy,
Aye.
Joanne Green.
Aye.
Okay, surplus items.
So we have two surplus items that we're asking for you to authorize the superintendent to dispose of, and dispose of does include the sale of, just so you know, but that's the language in state statute, and we're required to ask for approval, and we need a 2/3 vote for us to be able to sell, auction any equipment, books, technology that we're not going to use any longer. And so we have the 250 HP laptops that were our current teacher technology devices. Our tech department has deployed the new MacBooks out, and now they are cleaning up those HP laptops. They're not ready to be sold or auctioned off yet until tech goes through and cleans those up. And then the other, we do have 4 basketball standards, basketball backboards and hoops over at Cody Elementary. They will be getting new standards over there probably late this summer. And we think there's probably a market that we can probably maybe get those sold. We are working with the foundation. They potentially are going to do a fundraiser with those as well. So again, we're just asking you to give us authorization to be able to sell or dispose of those items.
The only thing I was thinking of when I saw this is, can we give our employees first dibs at those?
Yeah, and that's that's exactly what we'll do. Once you have given us approval, we'll work with Brian Tegmeyer and the tech department on kind of a dollar amount that those are worth. I think maybe Matt or somebody in finance had asked about whether there's a buyback program for HPs, and there is not. Now, the MacBooks do have a buyback program. So at the end of this 5-year cycle with the MacBooks, maybe we can sell those right back to Apple and get some funds that way. But we do think there is, these have a price tag to them, but we'll work with Brian to see what that number is going to be. But yeah, we thought we would go internal first once we get the approval from the board, and then any of our employees that would like to purchase one of these laptops would have first dibs on that.
Anything else? No? Sheila?
I'll
Or I
make,
can need a motion.
I'll make a
Never mind.
motion to declare the HP laptop computers and basketball standards, backboards and hoops surplus, and to authorize the superintendent to dispose of said items.
Second.
Now, Sheila.
Cindy O'Connor,
Aye.
Emily Garrick,
Aye.
Matthew Peterson,
Aye.
Angela Blazy,
Aye.
Joanne Green.
Aye.
Skip Altig.
Aye.
Okay, do we skip this next one? No, this one? Oh. What was the other one we talked about? Oh, okay. Oh, A. Okay, revisions for board policy 2002A.
So we had first reading on this in May. This is a brand new policy. Again, the subcommittees were pulled out of 2002, that policy. Kind of the highlights of this, our particular specific subcommittee layout is included in this. So we do have subcommittee on finance, facilities, operation, and legislation. And then we have personnel, curriculum, student services, policy review, communications, and American civics. The American civics portion is commiserate with state statute 79-719 and 79- or through 79-723, which we're required to have in policy. And the other component to 2002A is number 2, and that would be the creation of temporary or special committees if needed. And so that gives the board the ability to put committee structures together for, maybe putting some sort of a financial and facility study together that is a little bit more specific across the district or something along those lines. So the only thing I would ask the board is that if somebody would make a motion on this, you would be adopting this policy. You wouldn't be approving revisions. So we'd want to make sure that we got the action item correct in the minutes.
So I have a question, and maybe it's just more of a note, but one of the things that I didn't notice before was that in the creation of the temporary and special committees, there is language that says shall not exceed beyond the next annual reorganizational meeting of the Board of Education. So it's just something like we wouldn't want to create one of those committees in December, because then it wouldn't be able to exist in January, correct? Okay.
I would move to adopt policy 2002A as presented.
Second.
Any more discussion?
I have something I want to discuss on here. Just as something to consider. And I understand if we wanted to change this, we would have to start this process back over. But I've just been thinking about our process of how things go to subcommittee, and a lot of times those things then funnel to our regular board meetings as kind of a natural progression. And I like the idea of figuring out a format to where a board member can be either a chair or a co-chair or something along the lines of a subcommittee. That's how our state board does it, and that's how a lot of other school boards do it. Not that that chair would be responsible for making the agenda, because I still think, like for our committee, I think Dr. Rhodes is going to know most of the things that we need to be updated on and informed on, but having some sort of an avenue of someone else involved in case the board does have concerns or something they want to bring to subcommittee. Right now, there's not really a way for us as a board to do that. And so that would be my one thought on this policy is maybe putting something in there, and maybe that doesn't need to be in policy, but I think it's maybe worth considering and having a conversation about.
Have you ever had any trouble talking to them about getting something on an agenda for a subcommittee?
I honestly haven't asked to have anything on the agenda. I think as a new board member, I maybe wasn't understanding walking into our first subcommittee of how that process goes. So I kind of thought as a board member on a subcommittee that I would be able to bring something to that subcommittee meeting and discuss it. But what typically happens is our agendas are pretty long and we're usually in a hurry. So there's not typically a lot of room without holding everybody up from whatever may be on their calendar afterwards to have a conversation, if that makes sense. So I think there needs to be a process for us to put something on the agenda so that it's not just things cropping up at the end of the meeting.
I think that's a discussion we can have without changing anything in this policy. I mean, I guess Skip, you've been on it for almost 8 years now. Joanne, longer than that. My 6th year. I mean, I've never had a problem if there's something we want to discuss. I think we just can bring it up in the next month. I mean, there are certain things, and this is the same with our board agenda. I mean, there are just certain things every month that we know we're going to have to discuss. Obviously, finance is a little different because we always have our budget cycle where we talk about things. But yeah, I would hate to get to have too in-depth of a policy that we then run into down the road we're not following. And so I would prefer to just keep it as is. And that's something that we can, a procedure that we can, I guess, have discussions about.
Like, can we just put on our agendas, like extra items at the bottom?
Oh,
Subcommittee.
absolutely. We can always
And then-
add and discuss as we go through for sure. Yeah.
Because if that's already on, if that's on that agenda, I mean, if we have something, we have something. If we don't, we don't. But that way, somebody coming in brand new would know. That's when you can bring it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't necessarily think it needed to be in policy, but if we have a procedure
for
that
it.
we follow of some sort, yeah, I think that would be great.
Well, and usually the agendas come out enough in advance that best practice would be if there's something that you see that's not on there that you'd like to see would be to contact the superintendent and to have that conversation before the meeting.
Because that has happened in the past, you know, where a board member has brought up either the finance committee or the other committees that maybe this is something we should discuss, and it gets added.
Okay.
So that's why I asked that question. Yeah. Because that is not such a set agenda as a school board meeting.
Right. Yeah.
Because we have, whatever we discuss has to be on this and sent out and not changed until 24 hours ahead. So those subcommittee meetings are not that way. So you can add things as if you see something you think we should discuss in whichever committee, you can always add that.
Yeah, I think what both Mr. Simpson and I can do, we'll add an other at the end before adjournment. And we can just have kind of an open forum for any other items that the committee would like to bring up. So.
Sounds good.
Thank you, guys. Any other discussion?
I guess I will add one thing. So sorry, as far as the other, I would also just encourage anybody to bring it to the attention, if you can, of the superintendent or steward or whoever, you know,
Before time.
before the meeting. So, yeah.
No ambushing. I don't even remember. Did we have a motion and we were
Yes.
discussing? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we're ready for the call.
Yes, thank you. That's what I thought. Can we?
Ready?
vote?
Okay, Emily Garrick.
Aye.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
Angela Blazy.
Aye.
Joanne Lingreen.
Aye.
Skip Alton.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye. Okay, now we have our future board calendar, which is this week. We have the golf outing and the school leaders in law conference in Kearney. We have the area membership meeting here in North Platte on August 29th, labor relations conference, October 4th and 5th, and the state education conference in Omaha in November. And I get a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
Angela Blazy.
Aye.
Joanne Lingreen.
Aye.
Skip Alton.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Emily Garrick.
Aye.